Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining on the last day of Retail Fest. So I know it's been a big event. So thank you. Today we're talking about borders, barriers, breakthroughs. So more about cross-border, which is a topic that has grabbed the headlines for different reasons in the last year or two. So we'll dive into some of those with the panel we've got here. But certainly going cross-border provides a lot of opportunity for growth, but it also comes with risk and some pitfalls, some traps. So we'll dig into those today with an experienced panel that we've got. My name is Jim Vrondas. I'm the country manager for World First. So we offer cross-border payment solutions for retail brands who are sourcing or selling overseas. So we help them improve their profit margins and grow when they go internationally. So I'll hand over to the panel so they can introduce themselves. So over to you, Jennifer, first.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I am Head of Global E-commerce at NutriNaturals, formerly known as NutriOrganics. We are a whole food supplement brand selling things like collagen powders, protein, super greens and reds, kids powders. We have been around for almost 30 years. In a lot of distribution points across Australia and have really expanded into a couple of different markets only recently in the past couple of years.
James, GM of Digital and Direct-to-Consumer Sales at Spell. I've had the privilege of working there for the last 4 years and look after all things around technology and our direct-to-consumer selling channels, both digital and physical. Spell, a luxurious bohemian lifestyle brand. We carefully curate conscious products for customers that want to showcase, express themselves, and have a real connection with the buyer and sort of lifestyle, but through the product that we create, the community, and the stories that we connect with them.
Yeah, good morning everyone. I'm Mark. I'm the Regional Director for Aramex, formerly Fastway Couriers. So we were a domestic courier company in Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, South Africa for 45 years. And in the last 6 to 7 years, we've really pushed the cross-border pace where we ship to about 220 countries around the world.
Fantastic. We've got a really diverse panel here from some brands that are new to foreign markets, those that are more experienced, so hopefully we'll unpack that. For those in the audience that are at a different part of their journey, whether you're considering going cross-border or you already are, so hopefully you walk away from today with some real actionable items you can put into practice to help you on your in your future growth plans. So Jennifer, I might start with you first. So in terms of entering new markets, how did you know you were ready? What gave you the inspiration to take that step? And how did you decide which markets you should go to in the first place?
Yeah, we were ready for the next generation of growth for NutriNaturals. Our purpose is to deeply nourish more than 10 million people, so we have to go globally to be able to do that. So it was always on the roadmap that it was what we wanted to do. When it came to looking at which distribution channels and which markets, we conducted a few marketing trials where we basically just did 3 months in Meta, looking at some different geolocations to then see what was the reaction, is there a good product market fit in those areas to establish what a financial model could look like in those areas. Another thing that has been really interesting, so if there's anyone here that knows they want to go global but are not sure which market to even look at first, there's a really cool little thing that we did in Meta where you can take away any sort of targeting for a country and just upload the content, and then Meta will go, okay, we're looking for that customer that's most likely to buy, and it's not going to be restricted by a country, and the data that you get is really interesting.
Fantastic, yeah. I have heard of brands just reactively saying, well, I don't know why, but they found us. This customer from the US just started putting orders through our platform. So yeah, we decided maybe we just go there.
And some businesses, that's exactly how they've gone global, is they've just organically gone, wow, New Zealand is really popping off for us. Let's actually do something about that.
It's great. You had a bit of science behind it, right?
I
And
love
strategy.
science and data.
Yeah, there is so much data out there, and there's been a lot spoken about on many panels about data, and obviously that's critical to making those decisions. So
Especially if you're going to put a whole lot of money behind it, and when you're entering a new market, you're likely going to lose some money for that first 1 to 2 years. So you can't just go, yeah, feels about right. You need to have that data backing your decisions.
James, for you and Spell, and how this whole cross-border journey came about, and
Yes, some real similarities. So our business this year is 18 years. Started in a market in Byron Bay selling jewellery, and that obviously progressed and evolved to the product offering and business model we have now. But we're sort of nearing 8 or 9 years in the US, where we've really sort of invested as a growth area. For us, it has always been that art and science, and you hear a lot of businesses talk about that. You do still need to follow a bit of a sort of a gut feel of where there potentially are some similarities with customers, but then overlay that with the science and the data. So for us, it has been, moments like that. We have a really strong community. We've had some closed Facebook groups where some really powerful conversations do happen, and that's where you get to know where people are sharing stories, where they're from, they're sharing their discovery of the brand, how that might have come about. So overarching with that, there are some strategic opportunities for us, wholesale opportunities and partners. So, working with stockists in those markets where we already knew we had some online revenue, and then starting to share some space into those retail locations. And that, for a online business, that tangible part of retail, people want to touch and feel your product. We know with our physical store over here, the return rates are so much lower than they are online, because people can take it into a fitting room, can compare it with other products. So wholesale stockist has been another key part to do that, because it enables you to do it without the significant capital investment of your own store.
that's interesting. I was going to ask actually along those lines around the distribution channels and how do you decide? Like, there's so many our customers when they go cross border, they think, okay, well, what's the right model for that market? We've got some customers in one market, they'll go direct to consumer, maybe on through a Shopify store or their own or a marketplace. Others will go B2B model with a distributor, or on that. How do you decide? Like, what's the right model for your business?
We have, for our different markets, we have a different strategy, and for those different channels. So for US, it was very much, this is a D2C play. If we were looking at distributor or in bricks and mortar, the volume that we needed to already have to establish some good margins, the opportunity wasn't right for us there, and we needed to do more around establishing what pricing and product market fit needed to be. So it was more research needed before we really went permanent. For something that's in other markets like UK, we're looking at things like e-retailer. We've got some export into some Asia markets, and there's a distributor in a different market that we're looking at the moment, because the opportunity and the financial model makes sense with them, their reputation, what their goals are aligns with our goals. That's a bit of a vague answer, but I hope that kind of answers.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends, right? On the economics of it in that market, and also the penetration. How ready or is that market for you? And yeah.
Absolutely.
James. Mark. In terms of what you're hearing from
it's
from
really
your customers
interesting to hear
around.
Jennifer talking about Meta and the data and AI. Like, that's so important to understand. But one thing I'd throw, if someone's looking to start up new and start going into it, look at the data, but possibly just look at 1 or 2 locations to start with. I think if you tried to ship to the world, you're going to lose so much money before you know it in shipping costs. And then it's not so much the shipping costs getting to the border, it's all the other bills you might expect to get hit with that are very unseen to where you're going. And the real easy piece about this too is really work on your packaging size, because you're going to get charged for weight or cubic when you're trying to move these parcels. And I presume a lot of your products are pretty small, so then it's working on your size of basket. How much can you get people to buy to subsidise the freight?
We
And
got
it would-
called out exactly on that, where we didn't realise, because we sell protein powders and things like in tins, it can get, the cubic size can be quite big, and so bigger boxes and it's heavier. And we didn't realise that from going from 1 kilo to 2 kilos, just how different that pricing was, and how we were pushing these bundles that were getting the orders into the 2 kilogram point of view, and it threw out our economics.
Yeah, look, it's huge, and that sort of pace on the two models. If you had that large freight, you'd go wholesaler or find a wholesaler in that country that could distribute your goods, because it's a hell of a lot easier to ship a pallet of something to someone to sit on a shelf. But that opens up a different part of the business model. But I don't think look, I've always, when we talk about internally sending air freight, it's you can send a parcel across Australia in a heartbeat. But you've got to treat it as though you're travelling yourself. You've got to have a passport. You've got to go to an airport and go through all the hoops. So it's understanding that, and probably understanding the supply chain, because Jennifer uses Australia Post, very strong partner. They ship into the US for you, but do you know who they hand over to, in what state, what the tracking is, and how you're getting it back? So the reliance of growing your brand overseas and working closely with your partner early on in the program, because you don't get tracking, your customer service queries are through the roof.
And that becomes such a friction point for our customers, because the tracking information that they were getting from AusPost wasn't what the US Postal Service was actually saying. So they're like, it hasn't even gotten into the country, what's going on? Because it wasn't getting that most recent information. So then we had to go, well, how do we get the right information to the customers? Because they get cranky.
Yeah, so then your chargebacks, returns, and all that becomes a big headache, which is what you want to.
And when
minimise.
they're angry, they love to write in capitals. Oh.
Welcome to the freight business. But we never do anything right. But it's understanding it, and what I'd suggest is work with a carrier straight away that's doing it end to end. Like, you might pay a little bit more up front with a DHL or UPS, or even someone like us that can control it from point to point. It's not being handed over to someone. You got one point of contact, but it's just getting through those growing pains of understanding it, and then you can talk about tariffs, because I'm sure that's nailed you in the US.
Yeah, obviously, James, you've been sort of past that point, now with the fulfillment and presence in the US. But to get to that point, I'm sure you experienced some of the same challenges. But on the other side, once you've sort of moved beyond that and established your presence there, is the grass greener? What sort of like what impact has it had on your business to go global and actually set up that operation in the US?
The grass is definitely green, but the challenges are ongoing and constant. So probably the biggest challenge, like even with everything we're talking about, we constantly have to remind ourselves. I mean, we're so fortunate to live and work in a beautiful part of the world, but when you then have to sometimes put your US hat on, your UK hat on, your Europe hat on, like the customer experience in every region, it's not only just different in Australia, it is different everywhere. And we do have an inbuilt bias. We are all conditioned to understand and expect what the Australian consumer model is like. So trying to find ways to really understand, what that fulfillment, what that return process is really key. To the points around the growing pains and stuff, look, we were fortunate to a degree where we weren't trying to set up and respond direct to consumer from the tariff side, but that didn't mean it actually made it easier. So we did already have a physical presence from a warehouse point of view, but there was a lot of work that still had to happen to educate the customer. So there was a lot of pressure. If you were an Australian retailer, even with the established trust and understanding in those markets, there was a real freight branding issue that you had to help educate your customers that the stock was in country. It was available to ship that day, next day, because consumers generally became quite distrusting that if you were an Australian business, getting product in was not only very hard, but came with all these additional costs. So there was a lot of communication and educating that you had to do just in the wake of the big T.
Did you put anything in the checkout to?
Checkout, website, emails, even in some of our paid media ads. Like really, it's something we started to really lean into. That stock is in country and available to ship and really help the consumers understand that.
Did you have to do like a B2B to C for the tariffs, or are your products made in the US for the US?
There are a lot of challenges. Yeah, still, you might not be dealing with the consumer challenge, but the same pressures are still with your B2B import.
On the tariff side, Mark, you
Well, not so much on tariff being here, but you just hit on a really interesting point. I was thinking about it. I think the other thing to think about is from your checkout, what you're consuming to your end customer as well. Like a lot of companies we see, they will send the tracking number as soon as it's printed to the customer, and they want to own that journey. The problem is they're not explaining that it's still in the country of origin. So 27% of our queries from international freight comes from a parcel that's not even due to be delivered, or let alone even in the right country.
Wow.
So working with your partner, and there's a mindset, oh yeah, it's my customer, I want to control the experience, but working those tracking events, working the customer service piece is huge, because we're the face of it, or the industry I'm sitting in is the face of your brand, but your brand can be killed by the information you're giving someone that can be wrong really, really fast.
Yeah, great point. I mean, the localization piece, right? Is your brand a US brand? Is it an Australian brand? You know, we see a lot, particularly in Asia. It makes even a bigger impact, where the fulfillment piece is, the delivery times is just expectation is everything's going to be really, really quick, and it is quick for the consumer in those countries. So yeah, like if you appear to be a foreign brand doing business in a foreign country, it can impact conversion and a whole range of business performance.
Look, really good take. If you want to pressure test it, lean into one of the AI research agents and ask it to visit your website and ask it to not view your website as an Australian consumer, but read all of your T's and C's, your FAQs, your shipping documentation as if you're in country, insert country name, and provide me feedback. And it's rather humbling and unfortunately a little bit, surprising when it will come back and go, for some of the stuff when we've done it, it talks around even the words we're using had a bit more of an Australian feel to your freight timelines. And that can just tweak how you present words, and these little things are going to help with your conversion rate and that overall experience that you start at the checkout all the way through.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, building brand in a foreign market can be very expensive. How did you go about building the brand and getting awareness when you entered into a new market? What were some of the things that really worked for you as a brand entering into a new market?
I feel like I'm probably on the early side of that, and you've probably got some more long-term analysis on that. I think from us, we are just test and learn. So we are super reactive. We'll have a hypothesis, we'll test it, and then we'll change course if needed. We're trying to just be focused in what we're doing rather than trying to do everything well, not going too wide with major awareness campaigns, but we're really on a path of how do we get to profitability so that then we can turn the dial and scale.
A lot of it sort of doesn't change in the sense of what follow those small wins. So it's those innovations around what you might try within some of your meta ads. Following through. For us, a brand that has built through a lot of visual storytelling, and social played a great role in how we connected with community all through the world. Then layer in within your data, okay, well, which regions do we have a presence? How much of, say, a social following is in Australia, North America, Europe? Like, just look where some of the data points already are from those more top of funnel and awareness sort of pieces. And then even down to, become curious at order level data. Where in some of these little pockets where some correlations start to pick up in different regions. And what you then start to find is then there's some things you can start leaning into, whether it's partnerships with influencers, whether it's local marketing, whether it's events, but you're doing it in locations that you already know you've got a little bit of traction already.
So have you done some offline, do you do a hybrid sort of offline and online sort of storytelling in markets?
Yeah, building the secret sauce for any building community and brand moments that will work in Australia, that it's finding ways to replicate that in other markets. There have been times where that might be a pop-up location to sort of, test for a short-term lease And it's a great acquisition component as well to have those conversations. And that retail store is always proven to be a great acquisition channel. It becomes a billboard and it becomes a source of feedback. So when you then do that in different locations, we've done that both in Australia and overseas, the information you get, and you empower the team to provide really rich feedback back, whether it's just put in as much information in end of day reports, like really funnel back what those conversations are, and having some team members from here go over to help support those projects has been really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, with a global business, Mark, in terms of the learnings that are happening in all the different regions, right? We find that the transfer of that knowledge, something you may have done in the US or in Europe, may be relevant back here in Australia, right? And you bring that learning back here, or vice versa. There's a bias, you said before, right, in terms of us thinking, oh, we'll just replicate what we do here when we go cross-border, but there's learnings from other markets that you can bring into here. So, Mark, from what you guys see in terms of in Australia, trends potentially overseas, how do you, stay on top of all of that that's happening in such a busy, noisy market where there's so much demand for brand owners, for business owners, from everything from brand through to logistics to fulfillment to everything. As an organisation internally, how do you handle that sort of information to make sure that you're learning and continue to evolving as a business?
Look, as a logistics business, it's been a super interesting couple of years, right? You take the Middle East and what that instantly does to freight prices, and can you move products? So it's evolving on our side every day. Like planes don't, when everything's going well on a plane or a boat's running on schedule, everything's really good, and you can really work with your suppliers, drive it down and drive the best pricing. But from a logistics carrier, they face the same problems Jennifer faced when they wanted to grow. Like you go, oh shit, this is going to cost us a lot of money. Well, we can't buy space for a box. We're buying space for thousands of kilos. So then we've got to work backwards. How do you fill it? So you pull your lane. So it sort of comes back to, that's the logistics challenge. That's the part, that's what we deal with day in, day out. But it's working with the customers together, because if you can't do a pop-up store, which is great, you're very evolved to be and having warehousing in different countries. If you didn't want to do that, a good account manager would be able to tell you what areas have got the best shipping into. And if you took the US, even broke that down into 6 or 7 places, your warehouses are probably sitting in nice GST-free areas as well, so you can ship internally and miss the GST. So the model's interesting. I think the model then would be, do you want to sell on Amazon or in a marketplace? Like, yeah, the marketplaces will give you great reach. They'll give you great hit rate to your product. But that also opens a can of worms that you're then stuck in their ecosystem. So you're so reliant on their warehouse, their speed to market, their carriers. So that offers limitations as well. But some of the biggest and best brands of the world have grown from there. And they've used that opportunity, used the marketplaces. Marketplaces are tied in with carriers, because as retailers or sellers, you don't want 50 integrations with 50 carriers. But limiting it to one can cause you a lot of money as well. So there's great, what do you call them, aggregators or platforms here that will give you those opportunities to ship. So I'd be wide open to everything, but I'd do the research. And I think that's amazing about what you're saying about put the lens on it from an AI point of view, because it's so much money can be saved, or speed to market, because the world can change, as we've seen. The way the Middle East just changed, all of a sudden things moved. How do I charge another 20% for fuel that I just got hit with in a day? And yeah, it's an interesting subject, the whole fuel. And I'd just be, if you looked at it from a logistics eyes, I'd be working with a company that are very transparent about when their rates change, how they change, and you can kind of forecast that with them.
The other thing, and you talk about, speak to your account managers. The other hack that's worked is, it's not just conferences where people want to share information. So, if you're, like we're on a Zoom meeting about a completely different topic, and you hear an accent. Oh, start asking that person question. Whereabouts are you based? Oh, we're based in Colorado. Cool. Tell me about Colorado. What do you? And, spend 5 or 10 minutes at the end of any meeting in any moment, and you extract knowledge and information. And you just slowly start putting it in the little account that you can draw on later, and you're just building knowledge and expertise to help direct you down a particular path.
I find it very sorry.
So I think Australia and New Zealand, you're so right, because you talk to people around the world, they're not as actually willing, but Australian and New Zealanders will actually share information. It's unbelievable what they'll share and how they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many cultural differences, right? It amazes me. I talk to so many people who source something through Alibaba, for example, and I've been dealing with the supplier for 3 years and 4 years and never met them, never like in person. Like, I think that whilst AI is great for various things, that the people aspect of building relationships, depending on the market you're in, culturally, that's so significant. And we sometimes overlook it in the West, so we think it's more and more maybe transactional focused, that building relationships, getting insight, getting trust first does open doors for business to happen cross-border, and also can protect against any surprises, which was going to be my next question for you. Is there anything that caught you sort of by surprise when you first went sort of cross-border that you hadn't really anticipated, maybe like, oh geez, I didn't really account for that, or I didn't expect that to be a challenge? And then if so, how did you pivot or respond to that? Yeah.
I feel like I've had so many surprises. Every month there is a new surprise. But that's part of the fun as well. Like, if you're going to go cross-border, you're going to go global, you've got to be prepared for all the pivots and kind of be curious about it. I have fun. I quite enjoy when there's a little problem in the way, when there's something new with tariffs. I don't know, I get a kick out of solving a problem. So that suits my personality. But, we launched our specific US website in March last year, and then the tariffs happened a couple of months later. That was a huge surprise. The cost to acquire a new customer, trying to reduce that had been a surprise. We knew it would be high, but the difficulty in reducing that compared to AU was really interesting. I thought that everybody would love a sale. Everyone would love a gift with purchase. Put an offer in a meta ad and that's going to do great. But for us in the States, and I think this is because we're building our brand as well, is those ads have not done as well for us as just a BAU ad, problem solving. I put it down to we're a new brand. I love a discount, but the US they haven't really responded as much to an offer in an ad.
It is all different. One thing, and we've done this at a number of different brands, there's a website called Mild, and it's a great way to go and look at a database of brand EDMs. So if there's a particular market you're going into, we've done this before, we're like, well, let's go look at 3 or 4 different brands that are in that market. What emails have they sent out in the previous 1, 2, or 3 years? And, for, say, the US market, there is a real buy now, wear now, where the Australian consumer might buy something for a future moment or event, and, understanding the cadence of fall promotional activity that is going to be so different to our mindset here. And if you can build some of these cues in your calendar of when brands might do a certain activation or a fall range, it just helps you plan your calendar and remove that bias that is very much to the Australian timings.
Have you found that US are more trusting than an AU market? Like, we find we've got to really educate the AU customer, but in the US they kind of take us at face value.
Definitely, you have to, and it's back to the earlier question. You have to execute with precision, and there is so much more choice in the US market. So if you fail or you do something wrong, they will, that consumer base will get very frustrated, but they have a lot more choice to then go and find a replacement for your product. And when you look at the data, and it's not just US, it could be any region, don't underestimate the impact of, if it is only 1% of your revenue or 0.5% of your revenue, it could be a real growth area, but you might be finding that the cost of freight to that area could be very different to your assumption. So it's like, looking for those problems. They're going to be there all the time. Check and track and have ways to have little signals to help you know where you need to put that spotlight, so you're constantly alert of what's happening.
Excellent. Profit margins. not a very sexy term. Like a lot of people talk about, being a 7-figure, 8-figure, 10-figure seller, all top line, sort of attractive, sexy numbers. But when you strip it all back, the cost of freight, the cost of advertising, foreign currency conversions, all those stuff eats into your profit margins, right? And if you're just a domestic operator, you can pretty much project your cash flows pretty smoothly and control a lot of those costs. But when you go cross-border, there's another element of uncertainty that eats into your profit margin. So, how is there any tip for anyone here that, in terms of if they're going to go cross-border or already cross-border, where you think maybe they can look at reducing some cost to help protect their profit margin, or even maybe improve their profit margin from any sort of shocks that might happen along the way?
I think you've got to be able to react quickly, and that's why that cross-border D2C into the US worked for us, because we needed to do a bunch of learnings so that we could see what our margins looked like, gross profit, net margin, EBITDA, because you will find costs that creep in. There's some costs you just can't reduce, and that's the nature of the game. I think getting your full team involved in the financial modelling, so getting your whoever looks after your operations, your marketing, your e-commerce, to stress those numbers with you so that you don't have surprises down the track. I think looking long term is really important so that you can see, okay, at the moment, so for us, the stage of growth that we're in for the US is, we're a startup in the US, so we are acquiring new customers and then really trying to retain them to improve our profitability. So we know what our economics look like for the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and at what point we get profitable and at what point we earn back our losses. And understanding your metrics as well, rather than just looking at top line, bottom line, really knowing what metrics are going to make a change. I could keep talking, I will stop.
Those levers are important, right? What levers can you influence that are actually make a difference? Yeah.
And some of them you think, this is a big deal, this will change everything. And then when you do the modelling, you're like, it really doesn't.
I can only really add and support. It is, lean into your team to help look at all parts of that whole, process in your business to identify what the true costs are. There's no one platform where you can just click a button and see it all broken down. Some of them are really delayed when the invoices might come in. It's 3 months after you've, say, shipped the product. So having some good tools and systems internally that you can pull all of that together and really itemize everything that's having a clip of the ticket to know what is that final number.
And that sort of financial acumen is something that most brand owners is really foreign to them, right? So having the right partner, if you don't have that inside your business, right, finding the right partner that can help you provide that visibility and inputs into exactly what you're saying, either from a logistics point of view, is that something that you guys play a role in terms of how closely would you work with a brand owner to help understand that profitability lever and what they can do to optimize?
Most people straight off the bat, they say, how can I do it cheaper? And that's probably the wrong question. The question is, how can we work together to build a partnership on this? Because there are certain days freight is cheaper than others. But if you don't talk to your carrier, you won't know that. And you might say, well, there's a certain package size. We can pack this way and can move it to certain places better. Do you realise if you're shipping on this day, you might be getting penal rates at the other end where stuff's being stored in the US for 48 hours and you're paying for that. So it's working with the carrier to understand, you know what, I might be better off just slowing my delivery promise down a day and then going, I can move it these days and save 20-25% right through. So whoever your carrier of choice is, just get close to them, work on them. The biggest thing that comes to our side is, how do I do it cheaper? Hey, how do we grow this so you get more volume from us and we can work together on a long relationship?
Great advice. I mean, optimizing the operational impact of how you can change processes and procedures can unlock costs and improve profit margins on their own. And I think that principle would apply across all your service providers, right? Across everyone you use. So, look, I just realised we're out of time. Time has flown by. Thank you very much to the panel, and thank you everyone for coming. Hopefully you've got some tips you can put into practice to optimise your global expansion when you go cross-border. So thanks everyone. Thank you.
Thanks,